I don't like writing, so for the research part of this section, I'm just gonna make a small little kind of podcast going through kind of everything to do with the heat scene, just to kind of get a better idea of how it's shot, what it's doing. So we're gonna look into like camera movement, angles, sizes, lenses, sound, lighting, color gradient. Shouldn't be too long, so let's get this started. For camera movement, the scene, the camera, like, right, basically, at the start of the scene, the camera is very out. You can see full body pretty much, apart from legs, obviously, because they're at the table, of both actors, and you can see a lot of the background, uh, you know, diner. You can see everyone in the background there, a lot of sound, everyone's kind of moving around, doing stuff. There's not too much intensity in the scene because you can see it all. There's a lot of room to breathe. There's a lot of room to kind of digest where they are and what they're doing. You don't really care too much at this point about what they're actually talking about, but it doesn't really matter this time of the scene because it's not very, you know, intense. As you get closer in the scene, further into the scene, the camera gets a lot closer to the actors as you go through. So at like 2 minutes in, the camera will get closer, then it'll get closer again, it'll get closer again as you care more and more about what the actors are actually saying. This is good because it brings more like power to what they're saying because you can only see them. By the end, you can only see their faces very close up, as if you're leaning in to actually hear what they have to say. The scene becomes a lot more intense as you go through because what they're saying becomes a lot more intense. You struggle to breathe towards the end because you're too close onto them. It's a very good technique, and it definitely helps. It definitely changes the scene throughout. If it was just them talking with the camera staying the same each time, it doesn't really. It's not very interesting. As it moves in, you get more and more engaged with what the actors are actually saying, and it brings a lot more power to the scene. And it brings a lot more power to what they're saying, and how much power their characters have in the scene. Sound is another thing that changes. While not playing a big role, kind of towards the end of the scene, definitely when Al Pacino's talking about locking him up, you can definitely hear the sound kind of dimming in the background. This again gives much more intensity to what they're actually saying, as the music kind of, well, not the music, but the sounds of people, like, talking kind of dimmens down. It puts a lot more power into what they're saying because there's no background noise. That's the only thing that matters. That's the only thing that you need to hear. That's the only thing that is important, and that's the most important thing going on in the restaurant. In terms of editing, it's not really edited in any kind of unusual style. It's sort of edited as just kind of a normal conversation with just over shoulder shots and back and forths between them. There's not really much like different about this. It's a very common editing style, and it works for this because it is a normal conversation. However, the power of the conversation is obviously a lot greater than a normal conversation, and the director definitely knows this. So he's, as I said before, the camera's moving in, but as it's shot, it's basically just kind of shot as like a normal conversation, really. In terms of colour, the palette consists of mostly greys and blacks and very drab colours. This is important because the conversation they're having is very drab. It's not a happy conversation. They're talking about locking each other up. They're talking about trying to find each other. They're not happy people, and the scene definitely reflects this. As it's a diner scene, a lot of happy people go around in the background, but their conversation very black, grey, grim. They don't like each other. So this colour palette definitely fits this feeling that they have, and it reflects that to the audience, as you don't feel very happy watching the scene because there's no bright colours. There's nothing. It's just drab greys, a lot of grey, blacks, and it definitely fits the scene. If we're talking about lighting in this scene, it is lit kind of very well. There's no places where it seems overly dark or overly bright. It's kind of just mediocre sort of lighting. Like it's fine lighting and it works with the scene, but it's just very well lit. If we're talking about angles, a lot of this is kind of just very straight cut, still shots and straight angles, and this reflects to me how the characters are in the actual scene because they're very set in their way people. They're very they know what they want, and they'll try and get that way in a very straightforward sort of manner. So these shots definitely reflect how the characters act and how the characters are feeling in the scene.